So I tried to figure out exactly what I wanted to talk about, and there's a lot of things I want to talk about, but the most important thing has to be love. I was asked on my 37th birthday what my greatest wisdom, it was tongue in cheek from my sister. The most wise thing I learned in the 37 years, and the first thing that came to mind, and the only thing that really I think was worth saying was learn to love. Learn what real love is. And so that's what I endeavor to do. And I wanted to lay down a little story. I'm not very good at stories, but I feel like it's the best way that I can describe how I've come to a certain understanding about love. My second long-term relationship, where the birth of my second child was pretty short-lived. It was only about a 5-year relationship. But I learnt some very valuable, important things. The first thing was that in the beginning, you love once. And that love is superficial. It's passionate. It's a hungry love. It's a honeymoon love, a love that shines so bright there's no shadow to be seen from the other person, and even to be seen from yourself. That love is powerful, it's strong, it's energetic, it's movement itself, it's passion. And you can't imagine anything deeper at that moment. However, life goes on, and that light, that initial spark that lit the bonfire of your love, begins to be integrated into the wholeness of reality, and particular aspects begin to move the light away from that particular person in the beginning, which creates a shadow, which you begin to see your shadow. And I think this is a very distinct point about love, because it's my understanding that you don't see reality, you see yourself. And so when your light begins to be distracted, or just inevitably goes towards something else or someone else, you begin to create shadows around the things that you were originally focused on and shone light upon. And so you start to see parts of yourself, I believe, through seeing different parts of another. And that creates like a yin-yang kind of a situation where you're no longer seeing the pure light. Now you see the darkness. And it's kind of like there's, you could say 3 stages of that. You see the light in the beginning, and then you start to see the darkness within the circle of light. And then you start to see the dark side of that being. So let's say there's 4. You see the dark side of the yin. And that's kind of where it sort of stops. Well, it at least stopped for me, where I'd seen the light, I was obsessed with it almost. I'd give my life to it. It was an immature form of love that I would give to this person and to this situation, this relationship. And eventually I began to see the darkness in that, and then was somewhat consumed by that darkness, almost like I could only see the darkness from a certain point. And then something, after many times of going through this process with the same person, seeing so much darkness that I had to leave. For whatever reason, I kept coming back. I'd leave, I'd come back. And that's, part of my own traumatic, you could say, attachment style. But ultimately, I'd come back and I'd shine that light on it again. Until I started to step back. I think I started to withdraw from the relationship and from shining my light directly onto that person, and started to just let the light shine, sort of in my hand or in my heart. And what this done was it created a more objective view of reality. It created a more objective understanding of the yin yang in reality. The darkness then began to shine a light on, well, let's say the light started to shine out of the darkness, and the little eye in the yin part of the yin yang, which I think ultimately creates a separation between the observer and the observed in a roundabout way, a certain objective view. And in some way, this is a bit mystical, I suppose, but in some way it creates that final phase, maybe the fourth stage, where you see the wholeness, and then you're not so attached to the pull or the push. You're just allowing things to be, like holding a pot in your hand, a flower pot in your hand, grasping it, but then letting it go, letting the grasp go, but it's still remaining there. It's still there, and so you're free to leave it there, or you're free to put it down. And I think that's where the second type of love comes in, the love where you still feel this deep love, but then you see the darkness, and you see the light in the darkness, and you see the light, and you see the darkness in the light. You see the whole thing for what it is. You're not so enamored by it or so disgusted by it. Now you see it for what it is, and you recognize that there's no way you can make that fully one by grasping it. You have to let it go. And I think in my relationship, I began to let her go, but in a way that was immature again. But I began to love her in a more mature way. I didn't know how to communicate that correctly. And I felt like I was kind of sacrificing what I thought my selfishness kind of wanted. I had to sacrifice that in order to free her from my grasp. That possessiveness creates control, and all the other negative aspects, envy, jealousy. And so once I let her go, I feel like I actually loved her deeper than I ever had before. And even though the relationship ended, I feel like, and it's been a couple of years now since the relationship ended, I feel like I'm finally beginning to understand why I did that, and to understand why this is a much higher form of love, even if we're not together. And she's moved on with another person, and I think that's helped me to really let go even further, and therefore to love her even deeper, in a quiet way, but in a real way. So I thought I'd share that, and let that settle. Peace and love to all.